Disassembly of DC motor. Safety precaution. 1. Use personal protective equipment as per requirement of work. 2. Remove all flammable material in the working area. 3. Keep the working place clean and organized. 4. Apply coconut oil to hand while working in hydraulic oil, mineral turpentine oil, and industrial solvent. Preparation. Visually inspect the DC motor for any major damages. If there are significant damages or if the DC motor is beyond repair, dismantle it, remove all identification marks and plates, and send it for scrap. If the DC motor is in repairable condition, proceed with the overhaul. Clean the spare parts with mineral turpentine oil, MTO, and industrial solvent using a sponge and brush. Record the proper identification details of the DC motor in the register. Ensure you have the necessary tools and equipment for the overhaul. These are the tools required for disassembling a DC motor. Open-end spring spanner 6 to 7, 8 to 9, 10 to 11, 12 to 13. 10 mm tubular spanner. Mallet, hammer half a kilogram. Screwdriver 4, 6, 8 and 10. Combination plier, nose plier, cutting plier. O-ring removal tool and adjustable spanner and puller, etc. This is the DC motor to be disassembled. Now, we will use a punch and hammer to mark the parts of the DC motor. This is helpful for reassembling the motor. Additionally, we can use identification tags, taking precautions to ensure that the identifications do not dissolve when removed. Removing fan cover. Now, we are removing the fan cover first by using a screwdriver to remove 2 screws. Next, we are removing the second fan cover in the same way, using a screwdriver to remove 2 screws. Removing carbon brush. Now, we are removing the carbon brush cover by using a screwdriver to remove 1 screw and nut. After removing the cover, we are assigning identification marks to 8 carbon brushes. This is essential for the assembly process. Next, we are removing each carbon brush one by one by loosening its locking screw. In each location, there are 2 carbon brushes. This pattern repeats at 4 locations, resulting in a total of 8 carbon brushes within the DC motor. Finally, we are applying identification marks to each of the 8 carbon brushes. Removing the connector cover. This is a connector cover. Remove the 2 screws securing the connector cover using a screwdriver. Check if the locking screw of this connector is tightened properly. Removing the gear. Now, we are keeping the DC motor in a vertical position with the gear side facing upwards. Next, we are removing the gear's locking screw and washer using a screwdriver. Now, for removing the gear, we are using a bearing puller jig and an adjustable spanner. In this way, we are pulling the gear from the shaft. Removing the flange and O-ring. Now, this is the flange containing an oil seal and an O-ring that needs replacement. So, we are currently removing the 6 countersunk screws of the flange using a screwdriver and an adjustable spanner. After removing the flange, we remove the O-ring and dispose of it properly. This is a 100% consumable item that is replaced. Removing the rotor shaft. Now, we are removing the 4 locking hexagonal screws from the fan side to separate the DC motor into 2 parts. After removing the flange from the fan side, we are confirming the markings for reassembly. Once the flange is removed, we change the position of the DC motor to access the carbon brush side flange. We are now removing the 4 hexagonal screws using the spanner. To dismantle the shaft, we are removing the external circlip, which is mounted on the shaft, using circlip pliers. This circlip is used to lock the shaft. Next, we are pulling out the rotor shaft by gently tapping the opposite side. In this manner, we are pulling out the rotor shaft. This is the rotor shaft, which has bearings on both sides. This is the external body of the DC motor. These are the 2 bearings that need to be removed and replaced using a bearing puller jig. Removing the bearings from rotor. Now, fix the bearing legs in between the flange and the bearing. Use an adjustable spanner to rotate the lead screw and pull out the bearing properly. During overhauling, ball bearings, oil seals, and O-rings are replaced 100%. Next, we will remove the fan side bearing. First, we remove the locking key. We remove the bearing using a bearing puller. This is the body of the rotor shaft. Removing oil seals from flange. Take the flange and remove the O-ring. Cautions: this is a wrong procedure. Use O-ring removal tool always. Do not use a knife or other sharp tools. To remove the oil seal, tap the hole on the opposite side of the oil seal using a pinpoint tool. These are the dismantled parts of the DC motor sent for washing.